Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Buckhalter. I'm a member of CARG, or Community Association Resource Group. And today we have a panel of people talking about hurricane preparation. The panelists for today will be Charles from, and I forgot.
GRC.
GRC. I'm so sorry, Charles. I always remember your name, but. And we also have Leah, who is the expert in pool services and repairs. I don't see that she's on yet. She'll be joining us shortly. We have Darren from Forever Gone Pest Control. That doesn't include just the little critters. He also has a side business. He takes care of any unwanted board members or unit owners, but that's a separate division. We'll talk about that later. And we have Craig from, I'm so bad on this. I'm on a jet lag, but I just got back from California and I took a red eye, so I'm still a little down and out.
Let's try professional building services. How's that?
Right. Thanks so much for joining us,
Sure.
helping me out here. And basically what CARG is, it's a consortium of various professionals that cater to the condominium and HOA communities. And because of that, they're geared to knowing the needs and the wants of associations. Everyone has been vetted from our group. And before we go ahead and actually even recommend somebody, we get to know the people and the company. So basically what CARG does is that it's a resource group. We like to go ahead and give educational seminars really to help the community and to be there for any questions or needs that somebody needs. You can always call on us or contact us by email. And we're more than happy just to discuss whatever issues you may have. And there's no fee or there's no cost to that. It's really more of like a public service. So with that said, I'm going to just go ahead and start turning that over. We have various questions from the audience that have been submitted to us beforehand. And I'm sorry, the other person I want to mention is Jeff from I can't even
Mark, let me take it over here for a second.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I am so tired. I'm delirious.
Before Depot. And thank you, Mark. And before we get to the questions, I want to mention that this is meant to be interactive. We have some questions that were sent into us ahead of time, and a few people have texted us along the way as well. But at the bottom of your screens, there is a Q&A button. You hit that Q&A button, you'll be able to type in your questions. There is also a raise your hand button at the bottom. If you click the raise your hand button once, we'll see that you raised your hand. We will enable your microphone. You can ask a question of our panel. Please make it as general as possible because we don't know your association's documents or anything of that sort. So make it a general type of question with regards to hurricane prep and your associations. We will give priority to those raising their hands. So we'll first go to those raising their hands. And then if we don't have anybody raising their hands, we'll go to the typed in questions, either that you're typing in live or that we have ahead of time. So with that said, Mark, I will turn it back over to you. I see Leah joined us as well. Take it away.
Terrific. Anyway, so again, like I say, right now, today's presentation is hurricane prep. Afterwards, after that whole seminar or talk, we do have other people from our group that are staying on, and any questions that you may have, we'll gladly entertain and discuss. So to get onto it, obviously hurricane season is upon us. And I guess what we should really start talking about first is landscaping. That's Charles Infantino. He's been doing landscaping forever. And there's probably nothing that he has not seen or knows how to handle. So Charles, let me ask you this just to get started. Maybe you can just give a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll get into some questions from the audience.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Mark had said, my name is Charles with GRC Landscaping. Our company is a full-service lawn maintenance, irrigation, and tree trimming company. Been in business for 15 years here in Broward County, and I am standing by for your questions. So any questions would be more than welcome.
Okay, so Charles, let me ask you this first question. One of the questions from the audience was, what can we do to our landscaping to best prepare our property for the upcoming hurricane season?
Well, the simple answer to that question is trim your trees. And I say trim your trees by a licensed arborist. And it's important to have a licensed arborist trim your trees because they know all of the city and county regulations regarding tree trimming. Do not be afraid to ask whoever you hire for a copy of our documentation, a copy of his license and his insurance, as well as their tree trimming license. Our team has been trimming trees in South Florida for over 15 years. They are very aware and know what needs to be done on various types of trees, but the most important thing is that your company you select must be licensed and insured. And I say that because in the event you hire someone who is not licensed and insured and they get hurt on your property, you're going to be liable for any damages as a result of someone getting hurt. Even if they say they are licensed and insured, if you don't have a copy of their license and insurance, I would insist upon it. We carry our licenses with us and they're in the truck at all times, so that if anybody comes up to us, the documentation is there for anyone to see. So the most important thing is trim your trees.
So, Charles, let me ask you this, because I know, as an accountant, as a condominium accountant, when I do the budgets for my various clients, when we get to landscaping, we always get into the whole talk as far as what I call a minor cut or a major cut. A lot of times I go ahead and say, and again, I'm no professional in landscaping, but usually isn't it like almost every other year? So one year you might do a minor cut, the next year you may do a major cut, or maybe you can explain that a little more, because I know my clients are always asking about that.
Okay. The best way to answer that question is that palm trees usually are done either once or twice a year. And I say that because you have coconuts and seed pods on palm trees that will become flying missiles in the event of a storm. That is the primary reason for trimming of palm trees, is to remove all of the seed pods and the coconuts. Now, the hardwoods generally are trimmed once a year, and the purpose for the trimming of the hardwoods is to go up through the canopy of the tree and cut out any dead wood or cross limbs. And by doing so, that will open up the canopy somewhat in the center of the tree so that air can flow from the ground up through the canopy and out. Wind is the biggest destroyer of palm trees and hardwoods. So, normally there is a normal, what we call a pre-hurricane tree trimming, which is a lifting and cutting out of the center. But if the hardwood is extremely large and has a large canopy, you may want to do a secondary type of trimming, which is called a canopy reduction. And in so doing, not only do we go up through the center and take out the dead wood and the cross limbs, but we reduce the overall width of the canopy of the tree up to 25%, whichever is best or recommended by the arborist. So yes, there's what we call a class 2 pre-hurricane trimming, which is the pretty much standard that we do 95% of the time. And the other 5% of the time are for more mature trees, especially your ficus trees and oak trees that have that large canopy that needs to be reduced.
So is it just the leaves, or is it the actual, when you say the canopy is that just the leaves, or is that also the various branches and
It's both, Mark. It's the leaves and it's also the branches that extend to the left, right, and top of the tree. So you're going to bring it down by 20 or 25%. So yes, it's both, to answer your question.
this is really on a personal note. I know in my community, and this was going back many, many years ago, I think it was during really Andrew, actually. We had such a mess after the storm, and we had to call the landscaper. And I know that our landscaper that we used at that time, got to us in a few days because all the roads were, they were impassable. What services, does your firm do? And do you have like a list of, or really, how do you prioritize who gets the cleanup first?
That's a good question, Mark. And the simple answer to that question is customer loyalty. All of our maintenance customers are generally given top priority as far as post-hurricane cleanup, which includes tree trimming. We generally try to get as many customers taken care of as we possibly can. A lot of property managers will call us in desperation. Hey, I have a client, we've got down trees, we need service. It may not be a GRC monthly account, but we will do our best to put them on the list and get to them just as quickly as possible. My biggest recommendation is don't wait. Don't wait for hurricane season. Get the trees trimmed now as quickly as possible so that you can avoid this type of scenario.
Okay, we have a question from the audience. It says, how do we verify if licenses and their insurance coverages is in effect and covering the association?
Well, we have to be registered with sunbiz.org. And again, all of our licenses and insurance are presented at the time we present a proposal to a customer to do any type of tree trimming. When we get a call that is not a regular maintenance customer, we will provide all of our licenses and insurances to the board for review prior to them accepting us as their vendor to trim their trees.
Okay, I know from my standpoint, and again, I'm not an attorney, but as an accountant, when various clients go ahead and speak to us, there's so many associations that go ahead and use unlicensed companies. And that really, even though you may save sometimes a few dollars, the board is putting themselves at a liability. They have a fiduciary responsibility to go ahead and even according to Florida statute, use licensed individuals and fully insured individuals. And the only thing that I can recommend also is that with the insurance, you always ask for their certificate and for the association to be named as an additional insured. Very, very important.
Totally agree with you, Mark. And that is something that upon request from a customer who wants us to be listed as additionally insured, we will do that on their certificate and send them a certificate just with that information on it. Normally, our certificates that we give out is a general certificate and a general copy of the license. But once the customer becomes an ongoing customer for maintenance and for tree trimming, we will list the name of the association and their address as additionally insured. The reason for listing associations as additionally insured is that some contractors may take out insurance and then cancel it. And if you're not listed as an additional insured, you would not have that information. So an unlicensed contractor can go at the beginning of June, buy his insurance, and then once he has the insurance certificate in his hand, he could cancel the insurance, and then you're out as a consumer or an association with a vendor who has no insurance, and the liability can be tremendous.
And just as a side note, you should be speaking to your insurance broker, because what Charles mentioned as far as hiring somebody and then their insurance gets dropped, you can take out a a policy that will cover if the board knowingly goes in and feels that the contractor has insurance, and then subsequently either it's dropped or for whatever other reason, you would still be covered. It's not that much extra money on the premium, and you should be talking to your insurance broker on that. Charles, we have one of your, I guess, one of your loyal clients. It's Mari, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Mary.
Okay, and her comment was, GRC just did our trees for the first time. Excellent job. Started and finished the project on time. We're a 40-year-old 17-acre property. Best tree trimming to date. And then she said, please, P.S., please send me my $25 gift certificate for saying this. No, I'm teasing. But no, that was a real testimonial to you.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Mary.
All righty. Let's go ahead. Darren, can you unmute yourself? I know that there's some questions here.
Hey, everybody.
So this is Darren from Forever Gone Pest Control. Darren, can you just say a few words about your company, and then we'll get into some questions from the audience.
Yes, I'm the owner of Forever Gone Pest Control, and we service HOAs, anything as large as HOAs down to residential homes. We do interior pest control, rodent control, iguana control, lawn and ornamental service, plant care. And we've been in business for about 20 years.
Okay. So one of the questions, Darren, from the audience is, what can you do to prepare for a storm as it relates to pests?
Right. Well, most people don't think of pest control and hurricanes, but there is definitely a relationship. And as far as what Charles was saying, trimming your trees, it does actually affect pest control as well, because with hurricanes, you get a lot of wind, but you also get a lot of rain. And with all the rain, it flushes up pests from the soils. So you get ants, roaches, and all the pests surface. And a lot of times they make their way onto trees, and they'll crawl onto the trees. And if they're touching roofs, or they'll act as a runway. So there are preventative things you can do as far as pests go, and one of them would be trimming trees, because again, you know, the rodents also, they'll come out of hiding, they'll get flushed out of their area, you know, and there's a lot of pest activity after storms. So if you can do as much as you can as far as sealing cracks in your foundations, that's something you could do to be proactive for the storms. Just keep in mind that, you know, once it rains, even now that we have a lot of rains, yesterday we had about an inch of rain, even that's enough to cause pests to surface from the soil. So even in the rainy season, you want to think about pest control as well.
All right. You know, we will mix it up. Can all the panelists go ahead and unmute yourself, because questions are coming in, and what I'd like to do is, you know, maybe change it around a little, so we're not focusing in just on one person at a time. Might be a little more interesting. So Craig, are
Yes.
you great? So this is, you know, Craig from Professional Builders Association. What should we be doing? I mean, you know, your firm, I know, does light maintenance, does janitorial. You're probably called, you know, right before a storm. What's the most common things that should be taking place?
Well, there's several things that need to be done. Initially, you should do a survey of your property. Secondarily, you should take pictures as well in case there's any disputes. But from the physical standpoint, you should definitely tie down anything that can fly. You know, most people have been in Florida for a while. They hear it all the time, but anything that can turn into a projectile, the boarding up or hurricane shutters or impact windows obviously plays a big factor in it as well. Little things such as making sure your dumpster rooms are secure, so the dumpster doesn't get blown out and around. Going back to other things that people might not think of, when a storm is coming, make sure you cut the power to your electric gates. You don't want your residents stranded inside. But the main thing is clearing any of the common areas and also alerting the residents to clear their balconies as well. Something as simple as a terracotta pot can turn into a flying missile basically and cause a lot of damage.
All right, alrighty, great. Anything else right now as far as, a lot of these communities I know have club rooms and restrooms and so forth. What needs to be done from that standpoint even?
From that standpoint, it's probably not a bad idea to make sure the powers on the pool pumps are turned off. Again, anything that can be a missile or a projectile, bring inside to the clubhouse areas. If you don't have shutters or impact windows, it's your choice whether you secure it with plywood or you roll the dice. But the main thing is getting all the common area effects off the property and into a secured area or tied to a fence, chained to a fence, whatever it might be.
All right, I know you mentioned pool pumps and we have Leah from Avacare Pools. Hi, Leah.
Hello.
Maybe you can just tell us a little about it, and then maybe you can segue into, because that's something I know. I have a pool in back of my house, and I never know. Do you turn on the pump? Do you shut off the pump? What do? Do you dump in more, chlorine? So maybe you
Yep,
can
all
give us
that.
some advice.
Okay. Yes, so we specialize in weekly maintenance, repairs, installations, and renovations. So the algae is like the number one primary reason for green water in your pool. If the water circulation or chemicals are off, algae can bloom and cause the pool to be cloudy and green. Therefore, just like Charles said, you need to get rid of as much as excessive leaves and debris as possible. So trimming trees nearby, bushes, all that. To prevent electrical problems by turning off the power. If there's a chance a pool motor or other electrical equipment could be submerged, shut down power at the breaker panel. And sandbag the area around the equipment if possible so it doesn't go flying around. Also, definitely store your patio furniture and loose items in a safe place. I know a lot of people do this, but don't throw items in the pool. Chemicals such as rust from the chairs or tables could cause damage, and removal can be difficult, which would result in like an acid wash or having to get a whole new diamond braid. And also,
Leah, I guess that's the most misconception, that people always put furniture in the pools. I mean, I've heard about that for 20 years living in, down here.
yeah, a lot of people do, but sometimes the furniture, if it, depending how long it's in water, it can get rusty really quickly, and then that can leave metal stains at the bottom of the pool or diamond bright and just completely ruin it. So definitely keep all metal away from there as much as possible.
Oh, okay, great. I appreciate that. I'm just glancing at some of these other questions that came in. Darren, that's from Forever Gone Pest. Somebody was saying that they have a lot of, let me just see, there's a lot of shrubbery that's up against the building. I know by me, like I have some palm trees, and the palm fronds a lot of times, touch onto, my house, and I feel that, that's where a lot of the insects come in from. I'm assuming that should be trimmed back and all, correct?
That's correct. That's one of the first things we notice when we see heavy infestations, is that the trees are touching a building or hedges are. So I recommend when hedges get trimmed, keep them 6 inches away from the building, if not more, depending on the frequency of the trimming. And by all means, the coconut palms and have rodents, and they have all kinds of insects that are on the trait. So if they have any ways to get on, it would be by means of the fronds or touching the building. So palms, trees, and plants should completely be away from buildings. The last thing you want to deal with in a hurricane is pests, and they're all around, like I said, because of the water and the flooding. So again, you want to just make sure that they have no way to get onto any structures.
Right. Charles, maybe you can just move your camera because all we see is your muscular chest.
Any better?
There was one question as far as they said, does your firm also periodically take care of coconuts? Because that can be very dangerous, obviously, if it's not pruned right or chopped off.
Yes, to answer your question, that is part of the normal tree trimming process. In all of our maintenance contracts, excuse me, we trim all hardwoods up 8 feet, taking off all of the sucker growth on the hardwoods, but the palm fronds generally are too high, or the coconuts are generally too high for the lawn crew to reach with a pole saw. So we would have to bring in ladders or bucket trucks to trim them properly. And the palm trees generally are lifted. So if you look at a clock, it would be, the palm fronds would be like at 9 o'clock and at 3 o'clock. And then underneath it would be all the cleaned up seed pods and coconuts.
Oh, okay. And see, Charles, I always thought that you actually climbed it yourself, the tree, to get those.
Way too old for that, Mark.
Oh, okay. So you used to do that in your younger years, I guess, right?
In another life, maybe.
Mark, could I just piggyback off of something real quick? on
Yeah,
that?
of course.
So yeah, those seed pods also, if they're not trimmed, when they fall to the ground, they also cause pest issues as well. So by trimming the seed pods, you're also eliminating a pest.
Oh, really? Okay. Interesting. We do have a question for Leah. Should a pool be super chlorinated before a storm in case power goes out for an extended period?
Super chlorinated, yes. You definitely have to add extra chemicals because especially when the rain's coming down, it kind of dilutes all the chemicals that's already in there. So it's important to add extra chlorine. I'd say at least a gallon or two, and then circulate the pool as much as possible before the storm. So then when you turn off the electricity, everything will be fine. So it's not like too cloudy. And then it's good to add a little bit of algicide too, which helps prevent the algae from growing.
Leah, can I jump in real
Go
quick
ahead.
and ask you another question that's related to that? Should the associations also drain 6-8 inches of water from the pool before the storm comes because of
Yes.
all the rain?
I would, but you have to be careful not to drain it like under the skimmer because it needs to be able to circulate. And if it's circulating with the water level under the skimmer, then it could burn out the pump. So you have to make sure to do it at that level, and definitely don't drain it all the way because it will cause the diamond bright to break or crack. Mhm.
Okay. Good point. Let's see, there is another question that just popped up. Oh, Craig, if you can unmute yourself. They were asking if your company would cover up the windows, let's say with plywood or some other material.
Yes, we've done that in the past. A lot of people have stored plywood, or if not, then we can purchase and install.
Oh, okay. And then we have another comment, and it's a good one, that pools will pop out if overdrained. I know that in many years ago, Leah, when I was doing construction in high-rise condominiums, we were installing a brand new pool, and the pool contractor, unfortunately, did not go ahead and I guess release the drain valve for pressure. The water table rose. There was no water in the pool, and the whole pool popped, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that, when you're talking about 6 or 8 inches, that's not going to do anything, but just in general, maybe you can just talk about as far as, if somebody's doing diamond brighting during rainy season, let's say, you have to make sure that the contractor realizes that there has to be some water left in the pool, because if the water table, rises, that will pop, correct?
Correct. There is a way you can stop the circulation from just a skimmer and just going through the main drain. So that's what a lot of people do if they're going through a diamond bite process. They fill it only like a little bit, may say like a foot or two, and then they just have it circulate at the bottom, but it can't be like completely like empty.
Oh,
Then
okay.
it will pop. So
And so what, if you, from what I understand, the main drain on the bottom, if you open that up, then
mhm.
theoretically the water would come through that instead of popping the pool. Is that correct or incorrect?
It would, yes, it would go through that, the main
Oh,
drain
okay,
only.
great.
Mhm.
Alrighty. Let's see. Just looking at some of the questions here coming in. Charles, there's another question as far as with shrubbery versus the trees. Anything that should be done with low shrubbery as far as trimming, or is that not necessary really in a storm?
Well, as Darren mentioned, trimming your shrubs should be an ongoing maintenance function. Shrubs should be trimmed at least a minimum of 6 inches away from the building. So yes, that should be part of your regular maintenance. It will help not only with the aesthetics of the property, but will also help with your pest control.
Why is that when you say 6 inches? Is that just for
It's,
pests or cleanliness or?
it would be basically for not so much aesthetics and cleanliness, but enable us to get behind there and, keep the shrubs away from the building so we don't have any pests crawling up through the plants onto the building. So that's why you want to try to keep that at least 6 inches away from the building, but that should be ongoing with your maintenance company.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could just butt in, that's a good point because bugs do, and water also travels through vines that are too close to structures as well. Also, when it comes to clearing away debris and shrubs, the last rains that happened, 6 weeks ago, I spent the majority of Fort Lauderdale, the majority of those 3 weeks in Fort Lauderdale. The main problem was excess water, rain going into storm drains. All the leaves and debris from fall really caused normal neighborhoods to have massive amounts of flood water. Same thing with flat roofs and other buildings. They had a lot of rainwater. AC systems had leakage and seepage, so we had a lot of roof damages, but there was also massive amounts of flooding in Fort Lauderdale because of leaves and debris and trees were not cut away and moved away, and all of that water was entering people's homes and apartments and buildings because the drains were just completely clogged.
Okay.
Can I jump in on and
yeah.
make an additional
Of
comment
course.
regarding the drains and so on? But that is so important. Normally the leaves start dropping around October and generally finish up, and I always remember it around Mother's Day, because when, I have hardwoods in my yard, and I always noticed that right around Mother's Day, I got all new growth on my hardwood. So all the leaves have dropped. So, and the timing is great because now we're in rainy season and we're going into hurricane season. So now that the leaves are all gone and on the ground, now is the best time for you to contact your plumber or someone to clear your drains. You have to clean out your drains a minimum of once a year, all of your storm drains, and you could have anywhere from 2 to 5 on a property that should be opened up, put the pipe in and suck it out and clean it out so that water doesn't create a backflow and come actually up through the storm drain and onto the property. There's your flooding because you didn't have cleared storm drains.
Yeah, we actually, I know in my community in Hollywood, we had that problem. That the storm drains, and normally we try to keep on top of it, but for whatever reason, it was 1 or 2 storm drains through the community that was all clogged up, and that's really where we had the major issues.
Of course.
Yeah. We have two questions from Carolyn. Is there anything special we should do to our hot tub, Leah, before a storm concerning hot tubs?
Like a hot tub, like a single hot tub, or like a hot tub with the connected to the pool?
I'm not really sure. Maybe you can address both issues.
Just a single hot tub, you just put the cover over and it should be fine. And then the hot tub connected to a pool it's treated just how I explained a pool should be treated.
And obviously those covers, I know, fly in and out, so you really need to go ahead and lash those down very securely.
Yeah.
And then Carolyn asked a question. We don't actually have an elevator expert here, but maybe somebody of the panels can jump in. What do you recommend for elevators during a storm? Does anybody have any comments on that?
I can
Yeah.
address from back in my Winmore days.
I wanted to mention, we did quite a few elevator extractions, in these past rains that we had 6 weeks ago. You need a company like mine that does sub pump extraction, continuous extraction. So yeah, we did quite a few buildings with issues like that, and it's first come, first serve, because a lot of people need those elevators to get up and down. So yeah, think about that before a storm as well.
So Adam, maybe you can just expand on that. When you're talking about with the sump pumps, you're talking about in the pit of the elevator, actually, right?
Correct.
Maybe you can
Correct.
explain that a little to the audience.
Yeah, there's like there's anywhere from 4 to 8 feet below the elevator shaft that gets filled with water if the first level is flooded from storm drains being clogged with debris, or just that crazy 24 hours of rain that just stayed over South Florida, didn't go anywhere. Could cause a lot of problems. We had multiple buildings without elevators for days until all the water could be removed and dried out, and elevator inspections needed to happen, and stuff like that. So
Okay, great. Also, let me just mention to the audience, you can either type your message, or we definitely welcome you to go ahead and to ask it yourself and be part of our discussion verbally. So I'm just mentioning that to you. Anybody wants to be a 5-minute movie star, now's your chance.
Yeah, just go ahead and raise your hand using the raise your hand button at the bottom, and we'll see the order in which y'all are raising your hands. And then we will enable your microphone, just as if you're on a radio or television talk show.
Terrific. If there's no other further questions for the panelists, the four, we do have some other members here from CARG. We have Joey from Paul Baines Roofing. We also have Marcy, who is a cable consultant. So, at this point in time, maybe we'll open it up to any other questions. Doesn't have to be just related just to hurricane prep. Obviously, we'll still take those. But if you have any other questions concerning the roofing, or Catherine is on, being very patient, and she's a claims adjuster. So a lot of times after the storm, when the damage is there, she's the person to give a call to before you start talking to your insurance company. And like I say, Marcy is also on the line. If you have any questions about cable, TV connections, internet, and so forth. There is a question right now from Christine. What does Prime Claims have to share today? Okay, so it's a great segue.
Okay, so yeah, Prime Claims, we handle commercial and residential. And basically what we do is we represent the homeowners and the condo and HOA associations, as well as business owners, when the property has any kind of damage. So before a storm, it's good that you guys get with a public adjuster, whether it's Prime Claims or someone that you trust. I say trust because many times you can be dealing with someone who would love to have you file a claim so they can represent you even when you probably shouldn't have filed that claim. It's South Florida and there's a lot of companies out there like that. And basically what we do is we guide you and we make sure that you have a viable claim, review your policy, review your damages, help you document the property. And if we are representing your claim, we basically navigate you through that whole claim. Since we're representing you, we pretty much take the burden of you having to speak to the insurance company, providing proof, hiring engineers to, if that need be, hiring any plumbers, just making sure that the claim is going the way it's supposed to be going. One really important thing, and I would say we're probably all in South Florida, that I have noticed in the past year is that we're flooding pretty bad. And, this one last flood that we had made me realize how many homeowners I spoke to, and even not so much business owners, but even for ourselves that live in a home, didn't have flood insurance because they didn't think they'd need it. So when it comes to a hurricane, there is a lot of flooding, just making sure you have the right insurance, because even if you have insurance and don't have the correct insurance or enough coverage, at the end of the day, nothing can help you there. Not a public adjuster, not a lawyer, pretty much nobody. You've got FEMA to cover your back for a little bit. But yeah, that's what we do. We're here. We take care of the client. We review your policies. We take a look at your damages, and we pretty much guide you the right way and represent you in your insurance claim.
I have a
Go ahead.
question for you, Catherine, if you will. I've been getting a lot of phone calls from these past rains, and can you just explain the difference between a flood policy and a homeowner policy? And there was a lot of confusion about when a flood policy kicks in and when a homeowner policy kicks in.
Sure. Yeah, this is so a flood policy is basically when it's groundwater going up. So if it's groundwater, whether it's coming in from the outside and it's rising, anything from the bottom up. So that's only covered by a flood policy. Your homeowner's policy does not cover flood. So that is covered, pretty much you're only covered if it's a storm created opening. Water got into your house by a storm created opening, whether it's a window that is damaged due to the hurricane, whether you have a storm created opening on the roof, AKA a leak, or, anything like that. But if it's water coming in from the outside, ground up, that is considered flood. And that's where your flood policy kicks in. That's the difference.
And, I would encourage building presidents and property managers to, let the insureds know that FEMA will reimburse. Okay. A lot of contractors won't wait around for FEMA. So flood is completely different the way it's handled than a homeowner's insurance policy would be. And then if it's a named storm, it's what, 2%, right? Is that the deductible amount?
So yeah, the flood policies, they all have their deductibles, but pretty much, yeah, I think it's the same.
Yeah, it
You'll
would
have
be.
the 2% or a set amount for deductible.
I could tell you right now, just based off experience, if you're one of those people who don't think flood insurance is going to be an issue for you, we are working in Parkland, we're working in Coral Springs, we're working in areas that don't have drainage issues. So just remember, and the insurance companies don't care. Homeowners is not the same as flood. So
yeah, look at Hurricane Ian. I mean, I have homeowners that I represented that their flood line, meaning how high the water went up, was 8 feet in a residential home. That's that's the deep end in a swimming pool, 8 feet. So just to give you perspective. So imagine everything's got to go, throw the whole house away at this point, right? So they didn't have flood. So imagine having to, what is their homeowner's insurance going to cover? And when you have homeowners insurance and flood insurance, many of the insurances, it's good to have representation because they like to throw their thing, oh no, that was damaged by flood. Oh no, that was the homeowners. And, so you have to have the correct, documentation and know what you're doing when it comes to those things. But yes, it's so important to have those two different insurances.
And someone who knows how to utilize them,
And
like
that's
yourself,
right.
because
Mhm.
you could use both homeowners and flood on the same situation if
Right,
need.
yes, you can. Yeah.
Just as a furtherance, Jeff went ahead and was talking about with the elevators, that what he's done in various associations that had elevators was to have the elevator not stay on the ground level, but to leave it up top. So if there is tremendous flooding, at least you'll go ahead and mitigate some damages that way, which is a good point, Jeff. There is a question from Cynthia, Catherine,
Yeah.
about the cost of using an adjuster.
So the way that we work is we work on a contingency fee basis. If we basically, you don't get paid, we don't get paid. When there's different situations, so we're on a hurricane panel, whenever there's a hurricane and the governor issues a state of emergency, the most that you're able to charge is 10% on a residential. When it goes to commercial claims, it's a little bit different. And when it comes to prime claims, the cost depends on the size of the commercial property. So there is no real rule for when it comes to charging on commercial. However, the usual is pretty much 10% when it comes to, because our usual public adjuster's fee is 20. But the most you're able to legally charge once a hurricane hits is 10%. And that only applies to the first year. So we're actually coming up to a year for Hurricane Ian, which was 9/27/22. So when it hits 9/27/23, the charge is now no longer 10% under that state of emergency. It goes up to 20. So when you have hurricane damage, it's best you pretty much claim it right away, because that's when you're getting 10% is nothing compared to what you're really getting yourself when you hire someone to represent you.
Okay, and as a side note, this is really, there's no question here, but again, when I prepare budgets for my clients as an accountant, the insurance right now, and I'm sure that most people have felt the increases, have been dramatic. I have one client that went from $950,000 annually in insurance to 3.2 million. We had to do it literally a $5,000 assessment just to cover the shortfall in the budget. And there was no way that anyone was able to really foresee this coming on. So those of you that your renewals have not hit yet, and the sticker shock has not affected you, you really need to start speaking to your insurance broker and start doing some pre-planning, because the insurance rates, as I say, because of reinsurance and the litigious state of Florida and various other factors, the insurance premiums have gone through the roof. So just mentioning that to you. And as long as I mentioned about roofs, I guess it was a good segue. Joey, if you can unmute yourself. Joey is from Paul Baines Roofing. And Joey, maybe you can tell us a little about what we should be doing right before the storms in preparation.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. So the main thing for us is maintenance on the roofs prior to, just have visual inspections prior to. Documentation, as Craig said, is huge. The insurance companies are quite frankly not on the side of the homeowner. They say like a good neighbor, State Farm is here. It's really not a good neighbor. So documentation's huge when it comes to a claim situation for the roof, making sure debris, there's so many times where trees are overhanging the roofs. Trees need to be cut back from over the roof, as Darren said, 6 inches, for us, we see it all the time where, oak trees are over the top of the roof, and those limbs are missiles. We dealt with, I can't even tell you how many we saw when we had, what was that, Irma 5 years ago. The first 10 or 15 calls that we had were actual limbs through homes and through commercial buildings. So the point is, maintenance the roof, make sure the roof has documentation to it, and cut back anything that's hanging over the roof itself.
So Joey, when you're talking about documentation, obviously, in addition to contracts that may have just been completed, are you speaking about taking pictures like through with a drone to see the condition of the roof?
Yeah. So
And I'm sorry, and also, does your company provide that service?
Sure. So we do have maintenance contracts with clients that we've done roofs for, and roofs that we have not done that are on maintenance contracts with us. So as part of our maintenance annually, through we have applications that we come out, we can take pictures, drone footage, physical, walking of the roof, and we load those into our database. And if for any reason a storm comes through, you have documentation from us of the photos timestamped from when that was done. That's another big thing is timestamp documentation. When these photos are taken, have the actual date and the time and who took those photos is very crucial, because an insurance company will come back and say, well, these pictures look like they're from 2018, 2019. If these are timestamped within the 12 months of the storm, usually, the cat could probably hit on this a little bit more, but that really does help in the claims process.
Okay, great. There is a question from Clinton. Should we set up a line of credit to fund for post-storm services while we await for reimbursement from FEMA? I have to tell you, this is like near and dear to my heart. It's basically a lecture that I give to all my clients. It is so vitally important, and I feel fiscally responsible on part of the board members to set up a contingency line of credit. What that actually does is that you would go ahead and go to your bank. It's an actual loan process, but what happens is you have a line of credit for contingencies. So if you have a storm that comes up and you have unexpected damages, or even damages really for any other item that's on your budget for the association, you can tap off immediately from the line of credit. And the beauty of this is that once you go ahead and you go through that process, you get the line of credit. Yes, there is an upfront fee of usually a few $1,000s, but now you have, I don't want to call it unlimited, but at least you have a resource to pull funds from if you need to go ahead and have, let's say, landscaping cleanup. I know in my community, when one of the large storms hit, we had $100,000 in damages that we needed the landscaper just to clean the roadways, and this wasn't covered by insurance. So the only choice was at that point in time, if we didn't have enough money in the kitty in our surplus budget, or in surplus funds or deferred maintenance funds, you're up against going ahead and doing an emergency special assessment that nobody likes. You need to get that done immediately, which always takes, you have to have a 14-day notice normally. You have to go ahead and have all the monies coming in and collected. If you have that line of credit, you make one phone call, and within 24 hours, you have that money in the bank to pay the contractors to take care of any damages. Could be, let's say, a roof damage that's going to end up being a few $100,000 or more. Until the insurance gets kicked in, and that's going to take some time, at least you can go ahead and mitigate all the damages by that line of credit. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to be proactive, to get that line of credit before you need it. And with a line of credit, you're not paying any interest until you go ahead and you borrow or you draw down on that line of credit. So very, very important. I mean, that's probably, in my opinion, it's one of the most important things a board can do to safeguard the community. And if you have any questions on that, you can feel free to give me a call or reach out, and at least I can guide you and give you some advice as far as setting up lines of credit. So Clinton,
Mark,
that was
I agree
Yes.
with what you said. I'm just gonna chime in. It's important for every reason under the sun to have that line of credit, especially, insurance that takes a while. If you do have representation on a claim, whether it's flood or a regular wind, I've had, well, whoever's representing you can always ask for an advance, and that's usually sent out to the client within maybe 2 days, 3 days, in the best case scenario. Pretty much. So if they know what they're doing, they can get you set up with an advance, and that way you are available to pay contractors as well. Let's say in case that person didn't have a line of credit or doesn't at that moment. But yeah, they can get that advance pretty quickly, but it has to be requested on the same day as the inspection.
Right. All right. Thank you for that. I'm going to open it up. Marcy, can you unmute yourself? Marcy is with Community Cable Consultants. Marcy, are you there? I guess Marcy went to lunch. All righty. Marcy basically handles, she gives advice, and she orchestrates basically the contact between the association and the various cable companies to get you the best rates or the best equipment or the best deals. So with that said, we're coming up really to 12 o'clock, to the hour. I don't want to keep everybody, but we are here if you want to have any other questions, we can still entertain those. If not, you can reach out to any of us, and there is a section on our website. It's CARG, C-A-R-G, the number 4, and then help. So it's CARG4help.org. You can write in any questions, or if you want to contact us, if you can't get a hold of us directly, we'll shoot that over to the individuals here. Is there anybody on the panel right now? Because I don't see any further questions. Is anybody on the panel that want to say anything else concerning our topic, or anything else concerning your services?
There's a question that I wanted to answer. I think it's from Mary. It says, what's the difference between hiring a public adjuster or an insurance attorney? So that's like a big question. And the difference is when you hire a public adjuster, we don't charge as much as an attorney does, and we get paid on a contingency fee basis. So we review your claim, and the only thing that an attorney can do, which an adjuster can, is that they file suit and they take things to court. So before that, an attorney goes to court and files suit, pretty much they have to do all the work an adjuster does. They have to go out to the property. They don't go out themselves. They hire someone to go out, prepare an estimate, take a look at the property, document the damages, and then pretty much a public adjusters and attorneys, they do work hand in hand, because a public adjuster sometimes will get, let's say, an insurance company, like for example, State Farm, that they are not nice right now. So let's say you get to a point where State Farm doesn't want to move. Yeah, we'll then send our partner attorney, a file so that they can file suit. But pretty much when you go into litigation, you're looking at a minimum of a year added on to the claim, and a lot more fees. And the way that things are going right now, a lot of legislation has changed to where attorneys' fees are being paid out differently, and that's a whole different story. However, hiring a public adjuster first is usually the best thing to do. Again, a good public adjuster will review your case and let you know, if there is something that we can do here to help you. Because at this point, we want to get paid as fast as you do, because we don't get paid until you get paid, and we have the incentive to get you the max amount of money. And the percentage that we charge is way less. So we pretty much do the same thing, other than going directly into suit, and for a shorter amount of time.
Can I add something to that? As
Sure.
Pat was saying, I deal a lot with the lawyers and the the adjusting side of this business as well in my business. And I will tell you that I still have claims open from Hurricane Irma in 2017, and that is real. And those are all with attorneys in those claims. I've done several. Kat and I have done multiple projects together, and I don't have anything open from Kat's side from Irma, but I definitely do still have files open from 2017 that are in legal that, in my opinion, I'm very interested to see what the claim's going to settle for and then what the fees are on top of that. Because I've had claims, residential claims, Irma claims, that a client gets paid. Actually, I have one that was paid $85,000, just to give you an idea. $85,000 the client was for roof damage. The attorney's fees on top of that were about $63,000. Now, that's just to give you an idea, dragging these things out with, that's what they do. Cat's company, 10%, they want to get it done, settled, get you paid, get you made whole. So obviously, it's business.
Yeah, the longer the claim is in litigation, the more money the attorney makes. Again, I don't downplay any attorney, but it's just the amount of time that it takes. The stress that business is under, that condo, that HOA, that residential home, on getting money in order to fix their home, because every day it rains, it leaks, they're going through it every day. So to me, it's like, if you can get it settled without going into litigation, by all means. And then that's when you work with an adjuster.
All right. Last but not least, I just want to tell you what my firm does. We are monthly accountants that basically collect the monies, pay the bills, do the bank reconciliations, give you the financial statements, and help with budgeting and anything else, and also prepare loan documentation. So we've been in business for about 20 years. And if anybody has any questions, there's always no obligation or cost to give us a call. And I'll be more than happy to speak to anybody concerning any concerns that you may have concerning your accounting. We don't do any auditing, but we do have a number of firms that we do recommend. But we do actually the monthly accounting for condominiums and homeowner associations. With that said, we're just about at 12 o'clock. If
Hey,
there's
Mark, let me mention
Yes.
one thing. I just got a text. Marcy was having some technical issues. She's back on now and can say hello to everybody if you want to reintroduce Marcy.
Sure. Hi, Marcy, are you on?
I am. I'm sorry. I am having some issues this morning. Thank you.
All righty. Maybe you can just tell us a little about your company. I started to when you were out, but you can probably do a better
Sorry.
job than I can do.
Thank you. So hi, everyone. When you're talking about hurricane preparedness, one thing that often people are worried about is losing their internet service or their TV service. So just know that as long as you have power, you can have service. But once power is cut off, you will lose your internet service and your TV and your phone if you're doing an IP-based phone. So it's very important to either reach out to someone like me who deals with these companies on a regular basis, or reach directly out to your provider to see what's happening and when they're going to have services restored. Some of the providers actually bring generators to properties, to condominiums, so that they can keep services on even if the power has gone off. Anyway, my name's Marcy. I'm a cable consultant. I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the largest associations in Florida, and I work with any association that needs help, even if they're as small as 20 units. You can call me. I help negotiate for fiber optics, free fiber optics for properties. There's a lot of that happening today, where fiber is being brought into each unit so that people can have better, faster, more reliable internet. So anyway, that's really all I have to say. Thank you for listening, and I'm available if you need any help.
Okay, and we have a little comment from Maury. She said, really good webinar. Thank you. We really appreciate that feedback. And again, CARG is a consortium, as I mentioned, of professionals that specifically deal with condominiums and HOAs. And it's so important, to go ahead and to get somebody that understands community life. And that's what we're all about here. Throughout the year, we do have various seminars. And in addition to that, we're always available, like I mentioned, to reach out to us either by email or by telephone. And you can get all that contact through the website CARG, C-A-R-G, the number 4, help, HELP.org. And we'll be more than happy to try to help you out and give you some advice. So we still have a few more minutes. I think Jeff mentioned that
We have a hand up.
what's
We have
that?
a hand up. Somebody
Oh.
wants to ask a question on our broadcast. So,
Terrific.
Dulce, go ahead. Please unmute yourself and ask your question to the panel. Dulce. So sweet.
I think you have to unmute your mute button.
I just sent the request there.
Alrighty.
Maybe that was pressed by accident, but the hand is up and we did enable the mic. So maybe it was an accident.
All
Proceed,
right.
Mark. Proceed.
No problem. Darren, maybe you can just unmute yourself. This is really not a question that we came through, but would like to ask it. In addition to the pest control, you do inside and outside pest control, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that means that you would actually go into the individual units and treat that on a periodic basis.
We're licensed for 2 separate pest control services, general household pests, which would be the interior, ants, roaches. We can handle the interior on the exterior by doing a perimeter barrier spray. And then we also do lawn and ornamental, which takes care of plant pest issues, tree issues, things like that. Lawns, turf weeds, chinch bugs, grubs. So that encompasses the lawn and ornamental portion of pest control. So there's lawn and ornamental and general household pests.
All right, terrific. And Dulce went ahead and did send off a little message. Thank you all. Very good information. Joey, can you just unmute yourself for a second?
Yes, sir.
Can you just talk about, after a storm, and let's say we have roof damage, what should the associations be doing to mitigate any further damage? i.e. as far as tarps or?
Yeah, so the hardest part, if it's a slope roof, meaning if it's a shingle, tile, metal roof and it has pitch to it, obviously temporary repairs, we do those. Tarping, tarp companies, we're not licensed for the tarps. We don't do any tarps, but we certainly do the temporary repairs. On your bigger condominium, high-rise, mid-rises that are flat roofs will never, tarps will never stop a leak or water intrusion on a flat roof. I've seen it many of times where tarp companies will come out after a storm and try to tarp a flat roof. You are wasting your money 100%, and you will never stop a water on a flat roof surface. So in those situations, those temporary repairs, emergency temporary repairs, always need to be done on the flat roofs. But as far as the slope, anything with a pitch to it, tarps do work. We don't generally, the length of time that the claims are staying open, unfortunately, where we've come in Florida, it used to be back when I was very young when Andrew happened, but I've heard stories from our guys of how the insurance companies were walking down the street, basically cutting people checks on the spot as if they had their addresses spray painted to their homes. That doesn't happen anymore. These claims do drag out 2, 3, sometimes 4 years. We try to obviously settle them within 3 to 6 months, but that the days of those happening are few and far between. So when you put these tarps on, these tarps do not last these 6-8 months. After 6 and 8 months, you're going to have a yellow string all over the place because these things deteriorate. So if you're not doing a temporary repair that could last you a year or two, tarping, you're going to have to do multiple times. By the time your claim gets settled, you may be into these tarps 2-3 times. It's a lot of money in additional tarps every time that something goes and you have a leak. So I think it's more because of the time frame to settle a claim these days is the biggest deciding factor of which way you go. And the tarps can get up there in price very significantly, very fast.
Right. All right. Terrific. I appreciate that. Is there any other questions from the audience? Either you can, we can open up your mic and you can go ahead and speak it yourself, or you can type it in.
Don't see anything right now.
All righty. All right. Is anything else for the panelists that they want to go ahead and just last minute comments?
I would just say to be sure everybody has their communication portals ready to go, and don't wait until you know there's a storm coming. So get your email platforms ready. Make sure your websites are up to date. Make sure people know where to go to look for information in terms of getting the word out. Some of you might have community bulletin boards, community stations, digital poster, digital frames, digital message centers. But it's always a good idea to have more than one email platform too, in my opinion. So even if your association software has a way to communicate with everybody for like 10, 12 bucks a month, you can get yourself like a MailChimp account or something like that. So if one system goes down, you have another way to communicate with people that's not going to break the bank. So that's a little tip I like to give out as well. It's always good to have a backup system, especially one that's not going to break the bank or kill your budgets.
Terrific. I want to thank everybody for joining us. You know, it was a varied topic, and that's why we put on, you know, several different professionals from different disciplines. And again, please reach out to us if you have any questions, concerns. We're here really to go ahead and to help or assist or just talk through a problem. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Be safe. And we'll see you at the next seminar. Oh, the last one is, if any of the attendees would like any particular topic, please let us know, and we'll go ahead and we'll formulate a little bit of a seminar to talk about any particular issue that you would like.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for bringing that up. There's a brief little survey that's going to pop up when people leave or after we end this. It's only like 3 or 4 questions. One of them is that, what would you like to see? What can we do better? Did we talk too much? Was this lousy? Was this great? Let us know. We want to know how we're doing. We want to know what we can present for you in the future. And if you'd like for anybody from our panel or group to contact you, you can also make note of that in the brief survey that will pop up via a link right after we are done here.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for the audience participation, the panelists. Jeff, as always, you did a superb job in setting up all these Zooms, and Jeff is available for associations that need that type of work. Jeff, do you want to just give a quick?
I'm Batman.
That's okay.
To say I'm Batman right there.
I always thought you
no, we can help you out with regards to anything that doesn't require me or my team to be there physically. Anything that can be done remotely, business support, websites, communication portals, data entry. I also do condominium HOA consulting, as I've been on both sides of the fence for about 30 years. So I can help bring to the table something if you have service providers come in, I can help you out and sort of tag team the service providers to make sure that the right things are being done and provided for you. With that said, happy to help in any way that we can, just as is everybody from the members of the Community Association Resource Group. A great, great bunch of people. You will not be sorry.
All righty. Again, stay safe and then have an enjoyable Memorial Day weekend.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Have a hamburger
Bye-bye.
for me. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.